Hello, 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 and welcome back to Cook It and Eat It here on Jim Johnston Reviews the World. And today we have for you a very simple, easy, and quick recipe to make cooked celery, also known as braised celery. This is one that goes way back with me to 2015-16, and this recipe I originally saw on a Food Network show called Good Eats. That's host Elton Brown. He's still out there doing stuff, really good stuff for the most part. So I've been making this recipe on and off since 2015, so I've varied from his recipe a lot, but the original does come from him. What you're gonna need for this is a large frying pan or skillet over medium-high heat, a tablespoon and a half of butter or whatever type of oil you like. You're gonna need a half cup of some type of broth or stock. This is homemade chicken stock. And to that half cup, we're going to add 3 drops of liquid smoke, 2 dashes of W sauce, and a splash of our low sodium soy sauce. About like that. Then we're also going to need some garlic and some pepper, as well as approximately 9 stalks of celery. And we're going to break this down real quick and cut it into about 1-inch pieces. I'm going to do that real quick, and we'll be right back to get cooking. Alright, we got our celery all cut up, and I went ahead and cut on the bias. My preference, I use my celery whole and leave the leaves in. Pretty much in all recipes that I use celery for, even when I just slather it with peanut butter, I'll eat the leaves. So all I did, trim the ends, both ends, top and bottom, and cut it up. And then some of the bigger pieces at the bottom, I did go ahead and break in half real quick. So now we're going to add butter to our heated pan. And that's the thing, if you're pretty good with a knife, turn your pan on. By the time you get your celery cut, your pan's hot and ready to go. So I'm going to go in with about a large tablespoon of butter. So I can already tell this from the way this butter's melting down that I need a little bit more heat. Alright, then as soon as your butter's pretty much melted, you know your pan's hot. Go ahead and go in with the celery. Dusting of garlic, probably less than a teaspoon's worth. Several grinds of black pepper. And give it a toss. Alright, and let's go ahead and let this cook. Toss it in occasionally for 5 to 7 minutes, or until you see that celery is starting to soften up a bit. Okay, it's been right on about 7 minutes, and as you can see, our celery has softened considerably. And this is another one of the reasons, or a good reason, or a handy tip, if you are using your celery in whole and leaving those leaves in. For this recipe, when you know it's time to move on to the next step, is right about the time that those leaves from the celery have completely wilted and are at a point where they're just going to kind of start to break down. And so now at this point, we're going to go ahead and go in with our glaze. This is the braising part. We got it up almost to high now. That would be a solid medium high for those of you at home. And now we're going to go in with our braising liquid, which is, again, a half cup of homemade chicken stock in this case, 3 drops of liquid smoke, 2 dashers of W sauce, and a splash, I guess you'd call it, splash of low sodium soy sauce. Just going to go ahead and add that around the top. Toss to distribute that flavor throughout. Then those of you at home at this point, if you're using a gas stove, gas or propane, natural gas, go ahead and turn it down from a medium. Turn it down just a kick, a tiny little bit, and continue sauteing and stirring occasionally until this liquid thickens up and starts to coat the celery. If you're working on electric, you probably want to keep it at that medium-high level. Myself, I've got it turned almost all the way up on this slightly underpowered portable burner, and we're probably going to leave it there. So this should take another 5 to 7 minutes, and we'll be back to show you when it's almost done. Alright, here we are, just about done. All of our liquid's gone, as you can see, and we're getting some light browning. By the way, it smells wonderful. But we're getting some light browning on the celery, so at this point I'm going to go ahead and kill the heat and just let it coast in the rest of the way. Another cool thing about using the whole leaf in this recipe is now that looks like garnish. We just want to let this cool down just a second before we give it a taste. Smells great, looks wonderful. See just a slight glaze on it, as well as you can see the celery as cooked up is just a little bit translucent around spots. It's going to be softened, but it's still going to have a decent crisp to it. This is a wonderful thing to have as a side dish for a meal. Nice and healthy, low in calories, high in fiber, and other vitamins and compounds. If you're using homemade chicken stock, like you've seen me make here before on the channel, reduced sodium soy salt, things like that. This is low in salt, cholesterol. I used real butter, but you could use a different oil that's a better oil for you if you have those health concerns. And just generally, this is low in calorie and pretty good for you, even with the butter. I want to thank you, before we do the taste test, I'm going to do things out of order today. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of Cook It and Eat It here on my channel. And if you like my stuff, go ahead ahead and like below, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family to help me grow the world so I can keep making you this awesome content. If you want to further join the conversation and interact with me, follow me on Instagram and Facebook, both at Jim Johnston Reviews the World, all smashed together into one word. And if you comment on my stuff anywhere, chances are you're going to get a reply from me. Alright, let's give this one more toss. That's right there, just enough browning to it. I like that, that looks good. Alright, just going to put a little spoonful of this back in my container from my braising liquid as a way to sample. Alright, give you a little close-up of it. It looks nice, smells real good. Let's see how it tastes. Just right. Softened through, but still crispy. Or I should say softened through, but still has a bit of a crunch to it. Flavorful. This is a really good way to get some more vegetables into your diet, and it'll use up. That's good. I haven't made this in quite a while. It's really good. It takes me back. This is a really good thing to do. Celery isn't just for slathering on peanut butter. Hey, I like a celery stick chock full of peanut butter at probably a 2 peanut butter to 1 celery stick ratio. I really stack it on there, and but celery isn't just for a delivery method to your mouth for peanut butter or for making stocks and broths. It can stand on its own and be a solid side, just like just about any other vegetable in your pantry or refrigerator. One more taste before we go. Perfect. Another thing is, because of my homemade stock, if you're using store-bought stock, you got to use low sodium. And you can't find low sodium, then you might have to leave out the soy sauce, although that does bring some good flavor to the party. But if you're using a full sodium boxed broth and the soy sauce, you might end up with it being too salty for your taste. Just a word of warning. Anyway, again, this was cooked celery, as I call it, also known as braised celery, and this was cook it and eat it. And before we go, for me and you, I want you all to know, be weird, be free, and most importantly, be independent.